today's collectible spot, we are having a look at the Square Enix PlayArts Kai Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice figure number 4, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is a choking hazard, as some small parts are not recommended for ages 3 below. It is recommended for ages 15 and up, and this is Spot's continued look at the new PlayArts Kai Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice figures. The portrait is slightly flipped on the other side, as the armored Batman that we just had a look at was on this side. Wonder Woman's now featured here on the other side. Now this is actually the image of the figure itself, and I have to say, artwork-wise, it presents the figure quite well. I don't know if that necessarily would be the case when we look at the figure itself, but we'll look at that in a second. Obviously, we'll look at the packaging first. The side of the box doesn't actually give you the number, at least until you get down below here. It's figure number 4, Dawn of Justice PlayArts Kai. On the back, several different poses that you can feature the figure in. The iconic Wonder Woman with her bracelets there and the nice back image there. Figure has over 20 points of articulation and also includes that clear display stand that we looked at with the Batman as well. And then finally, oh, there's the number 4. I should have realized it was on the other side. Finally, just before we open this up, there's the interior of the figure, where you have on the right side the figure, the shield, the lasso, the sword, and interchangeable hands. And on this side, you've got the read-up here of Wonder Woman, which reads, "The agent of light or darkness, the key word to solve this mystery is the dawn of justice. She has incredible power and endurance, unmeasurable speed, and brilliant intellect. Her name, Wonder Woman. With superhuman abilities, she's considered the queen of all-female tribe of warriors called the Amazons. Once a light of hope, Superman is now distrusted by the people and decried as a false god, while Batman resorts to fear in order to subdue vile villains, vile criminals. Among the conflict between two completely opposite heroes of light and dark, Wonder Woman appears like a bolt from the blue. What is her mission? Is her alliance with Superman or with Batman? It seems only time will unravel her many mysteries. When these three stand together, it will be signaled the breaking of the dawn of justice." And then you've got some artwork there of Wonder Woman. Spot's going to take a break and get this opened up. When we come back, we're going to get a better look at the final figure from essentially the 4 figures that we've been looking at over the course of these reviews. We'll be looking at figure number 4, Wonder Woman, from the Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice line. There's more heading away, guys. Don't go anywhere. Before we have a look at Wonder Woman and her accessories, the one accessory I certainly want to touch base on is she comes with the same hexagonal display stand that have all been present essentially with the newer PlayArts Kai figures. Some of the earlier PlayArts Kai figures, like for example the Bayonetta, never came with one of these, but basically since then all releases have come with this display stand. I didn't show it for the Batman or the Superman for the initial 2 reviews just because I thought you guys had already seen these so frequently. I really did want to include it for the armored Batman and Wonder Woman because I do feel bad I didn't include that with the initial videos. So she does come with that. It's got the adjustable neck that adjusts up and down. This also adjusts up and down. It's a little loose. Spot didn't completely tighten it. There we go. And it has the adjustable waist clip for holding the figure. The one thing I don't like about the stands, as you probably can see here, you'd have to continually tighten these. There's like a little nut there on the underside, and I find myself countlessly, I have a lot of these on display, and I find myself countlessly having to retighten these from time to time. There we go. So that's one little thing I don't like. I also don't like that it's a clear stand because I always worry about the longevity of clear plastic. At any rate though, she does come with that. I wanted to showcase that in this video. Of her other accessories, she comes with her Amazonian shield. Which has some nice coloring to it. Almost a gunmetal gray, I would say, with a slightly gunmetal / gold. Primarily it's gold, but it almost has more of a silvery gold color on the outer parameter there, the outer rim of the shield there. And there's, I don't know if you can see it, but there's some scripture along the interior edge there as well. Pretty decent looking shield on the underside. very similar to a Captain America of sorts. You would take the hand off and slide the arm through to attach the shield to her arm. Next, she also comes with her sword, which reads a little stumpy. I don't expect necessarily to have a really sharp point, but I feel like it just abruptly stops at the end. I feel like it should be a little pointier on the end. That's just my own personal opinion. The hilt is a metallic blue, accented with some silver. You got the gold tip on the end of the handle, and gold right around the handle area of the sword. You can take the sword, by the way. Actually, I'll show you that in a second. And finally, she comes with her lasso of truth. It's unfortunately, and I'm of two minds when it comes to the lasso. I can tell you it's one sculpted piece of plastic. You can't do anything with it. On the other end of it, if it was, say, a threading, an actual, something pliable, you couldn't be able to really loop it around the little side of her belt. I'll show you that in a second, without it just basically hanging all over the place. Nor can you have her holding it. You can't have her holding it like this, because it just looks like she's holding a sculpted piece of wound up rope. On the other hand, though, if it was a loose rope, real working rope, you could hang it from her hand. Again, it's entirely how you perceive it to be. I suppose from the scope of, will I ever display Wonder Woman with the lasso in her hand? The answer would be likely no. So thereby, something like this being sculpted plastic, does it really bother me that much? I guess based on that mentality, no. If you ever wanted to display her with the lasso, then of course having it as a real material would make more sense. For me, I'm perfectly fine with just displaying it. And how you want to display it, this just basically like clips down into that little hook. It doesn't, you can force it down a lot more, but being the fact that that clip is also plastic, I feel like it's going to eventually develop stress marks. As you can see, I have not put it down completely, but it still holds it perfectly fine. It's no reason necessarily for have it to, because like the rope itself, the way it's sculpted, sticks out a lot further. You can try it on the other end there. Yeah, see, this side fits a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That side fits a little bit better. But again, I would not be putting it down all the way unless your intention is never to take it off. Equally so, she has her sword, and the sword slides into a little sheath loop that's attached to her belt. You have to do a lot of wiggling, and it struggles to get in there. Again, I don't know why they had to make it so very, very tight, but it does fit in there. I've done this probably for the last 15 minutes. You'd be surprised how many times I've been going like this with the sword, and the whole time it keeps continuing to want to have resistance to the point where I feel like this is a softer plastic. The loop end of it, the last thing I want to do is for this to break. So we'll just take these off, put these to the side. She does also come with, and I don't want to miss out on this chance to talk about these two, she comes with four pairs of hands. 2 pairs, I guess, of hands, total of 4 hands. The current hands in her wrist area there, the sockets, are closed fists. So if you want to have her holding things such as the sword, you're going to want to switch it out for hands such as this. It also has another hand designed for, I guess this could be for holding the lasso. And then she has a pair of flat palms as well, depending, again, your own personal preference. Okay, so we'll put those to the side. Now, criticized by some that I was a little easy on the Superman, or not the Superman, the Batman figure, which I think still is the better figure of I'm almost going to say the better figure of the 4 figures, and that's also including Wonder Woman here. Superman, the head sculpt, not crazy about. The armored Batman was okay, but very underwhelming. Wonder Woman here, I don't really quite know how to describe this figure, and hopefully I can over the course of this video. But one singular word I would describe to describe this figure is Unfinished. Spot, what do you mean by unfinished? Unfinished. While the armor, both the areas around the boots themselves, painted nicely in a cranberry and the gold, that same sort of color scheme carries over into her bodice, her bustier there of the armor. Nice color. The skirt also very good. The gauntlets on her wrists, very good. But ultimately, what is the one unfinished aspect to this figure, at least from my own personal experience of holding the figure in hand, every aspect of the areas that are flesh feel like it's unfinished plastic. It's almost very hard to describe it unless you're physically holding the figure. The figure feels like it bears no paint whatsoever. It doesn't have the feel of paint to it. It feels like it came off of like the assembly line and it was not painted. Now looking at it, it does have coloring to it. Let's bring the camera up here and look at her face. It does have coloring to it. They've added almost like a rosier kind of red color to it. But the body, by the coloring that they've used and the fact that primarily the coloring is so pale, it reads very much like it's a mold that hasn't been finished painting. Somebody has painted everything else on Wonder Woman, but failed to paint the one crucial aspect of it, the actual flesh color. I don't want to say it feels like a knockoff, because it obviously is not a knockoff, but it just feels like somebody just didn't go in with a paintbrush and paint the necessary details. She's extremely pale, probably more noted here in the face. The face isn't terrible, but it's not stellar either. In fact, looking at like an older Play Arts Kai figure, which I don't have her at the moment, but like even the Tomb Raider Lara Croft that we looked at in a previous video has more paint, I feel, on her and almost a better sculpt on her face than this Wonder Woman does. It almost actually reads to me like an anime statue. You know, sometimes those anime statues that you get where you might have to paint them, or minimally what they did was a very rushed or slightly unfinished paint. It just looks like it hasn't been completed. This is almost what this figure reads as to me. It feels like an unfinished figure. The hair is okay. It doesn't have any sort of life or personality to it. In fact, it comes across very wet and very just bogged down. And I note the fact that they wanted to put a little bit of a gap there so that you could actually move her head. So I appreciate that. But I just don't feel like it. Maybe some coloring could have gone a long way in the hair as well. There's no browns, there's no nothing. It's just a very dark, dismal, and depressing dark brown. Almost borderline black, but it seems more dark brown in hand. How could a figure do so well with the armor, the costume, the armor and the legs, and yet so come up short with all the other crucial things, such as the flesh color? Just, I wish you could have actually been here to feel this plastic. The plastic just feels, I don't want to say knockoff, but it feels like an unfinished, off the plant, unfinished piece. When it comes to her articulation, her head is on a ball joint, and then she's got a secondary ball joint that attaches the base of the neck to the torso area here. I think the problem too is it's just not a stellar face sculpt. Not one of the better ones, that's for sure. Her shoulders are on a ratcheted joint, and hopefully you can see how that joint works. It connects, it's almost like a secondary joint inside there that the ratcheted joint is attached to it. I don't dare say it feels flimsy. There's a double bend in the elbow, or more of a fluent ratcheted joint in the elbow. I don't want to say it feels cheap, but it feels like there's a fragileness to the figure itself. Even like moving the limbs and stuff like that, it feels fragile. She has a rotation in the wrists as well as a ratchet there. Nothing really in the way of a ball joint. She has a ball joint, like, don't get me wrong, in the torso, but it doesn't feel like it really wants to give all that much. She has ratchet forward motion and out on the legs. Just double hinge on the knee. I like, okay, as a plus, I do like that the the plate covers over the knee, so it conceals the joint. That's a nice touch. I like that. And then she's got the ratchet joint in the leg, no ankle pivot, and what appears to be a hinge right there, a little hinge on the toe, which is just really, really stiff again. I think almost in the same way that the Superman I really wanted to like. Wonder Woman here I really wanted to like. But ultimately she feels unfinished. The quality feels debatable, like the plastic quality feels debatable to me. And even like when moving the joints, I feel like the joints are gonna give way. That's not a good way to pick up a figure. The overall impression, unfinished. There's potential there, but I feel like just the cons outweigh the pros. Pick this figure up if you want to, like if you like Wonder Woman, but honestly speaking, I feel like this is a figure you could pass on. Especially seeing as this figure is over $200. That almost just seems ridiculous because of how unfinished she ends up feeling. Today's collectible spot. Boy spot. Today we were having a look at the Batman v Superman. This was the Play Arts Kai release of Wonder Woman, which honestly speaking, I think is a figure you could probably pass on. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more videos coming your way soon. As always, thanks for watching, as you always do. I'll see you next time.